All right, so here's your line of pre-repos. This Challenger's $70,000. So I'm a used car dealer and I'm seeing repos spike at car auctions right now. Dealers are the problem. This Charger's $57,000. This Charger's $57,000. Banks are the problem. This Challenger's $55,000. So what will this repo crisis do to the price of vehicles? Right now, Wells Fargo is paying extra to get their cars repossessed. Consumers are the problem. You can pay cash for a car and not have car payments. So the biggest financial crisis that has ever hit the car market is here right now. Delinquency rates are spiking. Repo rates are spiking. Monthly payments are the highest that they've ever been. Both new car and used car prices are the highest they've ever been. Inflation is high. Everything costs more. Student loan payments are about to be due again. Consumers continue to rack up debt. And now something has to break, and it's going to be the car market. So these are the type of cars right here. These Challengers, these Chargers, these Mustangs, these Camaros, these toys. These are the cars that we're seeing pop up going through these repo lanes at these auctions. This is a Volvo XC90 that I'm selling for $4,000. If you subscribe to this channel, I'll tell you how much I paid for it. Inflation is causing everything to be more expensive, and these loans, these monthly payments that they thought they can afford, they can't do it anymore. So this bright green thing is showing up at repo auctions, and banks are dumping them because they have to get rid of them right now. Prices are going down, repos are going up. And I know you're seeing it out there too, because I'm getting comment after comment after comment saying, oh, my neighbor got their car snatched up. Oh, I saw somebody at a restaurant get their car snatched up. So let me know if you're seeing this out in the real world too, because I know that I'm seeing it. Wells Fargo right now is even paying a premium to recovery companies to get their cars repossessed. And what's that tell you? That tells you that they know that the values of these cars are going down. So they need to get them back right now so they can go ahead and dump them at auctions, so they can get rid of them, because the values of these cars 2 months, 3 months down the road are going to be much less than what they are today. So monthly payments are the highest that they've ever been. And this is one big reason why we're having such an issue with delinquency rates. We're having such a big issue with these repos coming into the system, is because people just can't afford these monthly payments. If you take just one of these trucks right here, you're paying $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for this truck. You're going to have a monthly payment of $1,000 or more, and people just can't do it. So banks have had a big hand in actually creating this massive repo crisis that we're going through right now. And it's because that they were giving loans to anyone and everyone. So now I'm a used car dealer, right? And I go to these used car dealer auctions every week. What are we seeing there? Well, a lot of these big banks, your Wells Fargos, your Capital Ones, in the last couple years, what we've seen at these auctions is really not very many cars come from them. But now what we're seeing is they're having triple, quadruple the amount of vehicles running through these auctions that they have in the last couple years. And that's because they're all repos. The repos are spiking, and they're getting these cars and they're sending them to auction to dump them. And we know that when these banks send these cars to auction, they are absolutely repos, because they don't have any wholesale inventory. They're not bringing in trade-ins to send to auction to dump them. It's all cars that they've repossessed, and we're seeing a massive uptick in the cars that these big banks are sending to auction right now. These banks were just adding fuel onto the fire of these high prices because they were loaning at a much higher rate than they typically would. In a lot of cases, they were loaning 140, 150, even heard cases of loaning up to 180% of the value on a lot of these vehicles. So one thing that's very uncertain right now that could make this situation even worse is that we have student loans that are going to start coming due again, and we really don't know what that's going to do to the system. We know that's going to add some stress. We know there's going to be people out there that have to start paying on their student loans. They're not going to have money left over to pay for other things. So this could be another thing that hits the market that causes repos to spike even more than what they are right now, because you're just taking more money away from the public that have to make payments on these cars. It's actually so bad right now that there are a shortage of tow truck drivers, of recovery drivers to be able to actually go get these repos. And that's why you see companies like Wells Fargo that are actually paying a premium to be at the front of the line, because there is a massive line. What that also tells me is that, you know what, we might only be seeing the tip of the iceberg for these repos coming through the system, because we don't have enough of these recovery drivers to actually go get them. So a lot of these banks, they're going to get hammered, and you know what, some of this is going to start happening. So now what happens to a vehicle after it's been repossessed? Well, if the loan is actually held by a bank, what they will do after they repossess the vehicle is that they will send it to a dealer auction, and they'll dump it there where a small dealer like me will actually purchase the vehicle. Now, if the loan is actually being held by a dealer, what will happen is they will repossess the vehicle, and then they will assess the vehicle and look to see if it's in good enough condition. A lot of times repossessed vehicles are not in great shape after they get them, but they will assess that vehicle and see if it's good enough for them to sell it back on their lot. If they do, then they'll sell it and they'll start a whole new loan process on it. But if it is not good enough for them to sell it on their lot, or they deem it not good enough for them to sell it on their lot, then what they'll do is they'll do the same thing as the bank, and they'll send it to auction, where they'll dump it to another smaller dealer that maybe will fix the car, or they'll buy it to sell it themselves on their own lot. I've even heard of cases where small buy here pay here dealers will sell a vehicle, repossess it, and sell it again, and this whole transaction will go 10, 12 times before the car is either actually paid for, or it's to the point where it's just not drivable anymore. And the repossession cycle is actually very sad, because what ends up happening is these people that get themselves into a position where they have to put a small down payment on the car because they just don't have enough money, and they don't have credit to go to maybe a more reputable dealer and be able to get a loan from a bank or some kind of outside lending that's not so predatory, then they actually are stuck in this way where they buy a car, they can't afford the payments, they get it repoed. All right, they go buy another car, they can't afford the payments, they get it repoed. So they're just continually setting money on fire, and this cycle of just wealth destruction continuously happens to these people that are just in a bad way to begin with, and this cycle just makes it so much worse for them. So now how do you avoid this repo crisis? It's simple. You just buy something that you can actually afford. And you know what? You can buy stuff for cash. You can find cars that you can pay $3,000, $4,000 for, pay cash, and not have a car payment. And yes, I know it's hard to find a decent $3,000 car. I know it's hard to find a nice $4,000 car, but I'm a dealer that sells these kind of cars every day. So yes, they are out there, and yes, there are other dealers out there that are selling these type of vehicles. So if you don't want to have payments, if you want to buy something that you can actually afford, you're going to have to search, but you can do it. All right, now, so what will this repo crisis do to the price of vehicles? What do we know? We know when the economy gets worse, when people start getting their cars repoed, that banks tighten up. And when banks tighten up their lending, then fewer people are able to actually come buy these cars. And when fewer people are able to buy these cars, prices have to go down. Really, at the end of the day, it's in the hands of the consumers. Consumers are the ones that signed up for these really bad loans that they couldn't afford. Consumers are the ones that paid ridiculously high prices for these cars and continue to pay ridiculously high prices for all these vehicles. And it's the consumers that are going to default on their loans. They're going to get their cars repossessed, and unfortunately start this whole wealth destroying cycle over and over and over again. And until consumers will stop paying these ridiculous prices, until they will stop signing up for these loans that they know they can't afford when they go into it, this crisis is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. All right, so this Volvo we're selling $4,000. We have $2,550 in it exactly.